Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for June 9th, 2022. I think it's absolutely fair to say that we're coming to a moment where reality is threatening to smash the lying narratives that are presented by the dying mass media and by the collapsing governments of the Western world. The worldview of the war hawks is dangerous to the safety and security of the majority of mankind. And people are beginning to realize that the division in the world is not between democracies and autocracies, as the governments which call themselves democracies are engaging in censorship and lying and anti-democratic means to continue their control, but is actually a fight between those who are war hawks who want to continue looting versus the vast majority of people who wish to see the world advance through peaceful economic development. This is going to be the central topic of the upcoming Schiller Institute conference on June 18th and June 19th, an online conference which you can register for and participate in. The topic is, quote, "There can be no peace without bankruptcy reorganization of the dying transatlantic financial system." Now, I know some of you are rolling your eyes now and saying it will never happen. The West is too corrupt. They're dominated by evil, greedy oligarchs who are too rich and too powerful to defeat. Now, it is true that there are unbelievably wealthy and corrupt and evil people who run the financial and corporate cartels, the think tanks, the media, the universities, and so on, that control government officials and make the policies that increase their wealth while destroying the productive enterprises and driving billions of people into poverty and despair. That's true, but this is not new. The question is, will there be enough courage and thinking among those who are the oppressed to escape from the despair and actually get out and mobilize to create a new paradigm? The tragedies of the past, of wars, of economic and social decline, plagues, mass death, dark ages, they occurred due to the arrogance of those who believed that they were masters of the universe and the puppets they deployed to do their dirty work. Now, I know most of you don't believe that Joe Biden and Boris Johnson and Olaf Scholz and these other guys are the actual authors of the policies they push. One often wonders if some of them are even aware of the threat their policies pose to humanity, especially when you see Joe Biden turn around to shake the hands of someone who's not existent or stumble through a speech which they're trying to read in which they're presenting their policies. But they definitely are pushing policies that are threatening to the majority of mankind, starting with the proxy war that's being waged against Russia, or the sanctions that are being imposed, which threaten millions with starvation, while driving Americans and Western Europeans to despair and hopelessness. But if you're paying attention, and I know that people who watch these videos and who follow the LaRouche Organization are paying attention, even though you may still be despairing. If you're paying attention, you realize there's a new reality which is emerging, a resistance to the plans of the oligarchy, to the Great Reset, to the Green New Deal, to endless wars, to Malthusian depopulation. A resistance which is now beginning to be visible, even in the corrupt mainstream press. And it's coming from those nations, from leaders of those nations who suffered under colonial rule, that were part of the non-aligned movements in the 1950s and 60s, who suffer from the looting policies that are continuing by the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, and these other globalist institutions. They're suffering from assassinations and regime change coups if they stand up against the oppressors. But there's growing opposition to this world order of the oligarchs, including in the United States. And we see it in the recent conferences of the Schiller Institute. the passionate opposition to the war from someone like Colonel Richard Black, the former head of the Criminal Law Division of the Pentagon, who is speaking out against the danger of nuclear war coming from the lunatic utopians who actually are planning to carry out a limited nuclear war against Russia, thinking that it can be won. Black was very clear on this, as was, and Black, by the way, is a Republican, a conservative Republican, who was joined recently by Ray McGovern, who's known as a peacenik, a former CIA official who founded or co-founded the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. These are neither left nor right, but they're American system activists who believe in the traditions and the values of the America that is under attack by the globalists and the Davos crowd and the people of the war policy, the neoconservatives. They're also joined by 45,000 New Yorkers, more than that actually, who signed the petitions to put Diane Sare on the ballot against Chuck Schumer in a Senate campaign where she'll be on the ballot as an LaRouche independent candidate. People joined that campaign because they believe that it's time to do something and that they want to stand up and be part of that. Now, you can also see the panic growing among the oligarchs. Jamie Dimon, for example, who is the head of one of the corrupt organizations in the world, JP Morgan Chase, which has repeatedly been hit with fines for its illegal activity, which is at the center of a quadrillion-dollar derivative transaction ring, which should have been put into bankruptcy reorganization a long time ago, but only continues to exist because the Federal Reserve pumps liquidity into bankers such as Jamie Dimon, who then fund the speculators who keep the liquidity going so that the bankruptcy is not apparent. But the difference between liquidity and solvency is one which they're trying to forget. But you can't forget it. An insolvent corporation should be reorganized or shut down, not bailed out. And the people who are bailing it out are committing crimes against the population of the United States. You see it also in the desperate attempts by Janet Yellen to explain how she missed how quantitative easing was increasing inflation. She said it was going to be mild or modest. Jerome Powell, the current head of the Federal Reserve, who has been flip-flopping on whether to raise rates, will that work, why there's a need for more liquidity, and so on. When you listen to Treasury Secretary Yellen and Jerome Powell and Jamie Dimon, you realize they don't know what to do except to try to continue a policy which has brought us to the edge of the cliff. You see the desperation also with the war hawks, those who are still committed to destroying Russia, but are watching their plans and their strategy be dashed on the battlefields of Ukraine and with the opposition growing throughout the world. There's been a slow, steady success of the Russian special military operation in the Donbass to do the things that Putin said they intended to do: denazify, disarm Ukraine, and protect the people of eastern Ukraine from the neo-Nazi militias embedded within the Ukrainian defense forces. We're seeing the collapse of those Ukrainian forces, and we're seeing divisions emerge within NATO, where NATO countries are being asked to sacrifice the economic security of their populations to impose sanctions, which are destroying their economies. It's a backfire effect. The Russian economy is not only surviving, but in some ways is doing all right, but certainly not the Western economies. All you have to do is look at the faces of people after they pay for gas at the pump, and you realize the despair is growing. Now, what does all this mean? It means that when reality strikes, narratives collapse. And that's what we're seeing. The potential now to win people to understand the importance of getting out from under the domination and control of globalist oligarchs, and instead reasserting the power of the people in the institutions of self-government in Western countries. In the United States, the American Revolution gave us a constitution that gives the people the power to govern. What happens when you have an oligarchy that finances campaigns and elects a bunch of stupid puppets, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, liberals or conservatives, who go along with the same immoral and illegal policies that are destroying the nation? Well, then it's up to the people. It's up to us to mobilize, not to sit back and cry in our beers about how tough it is. Of course it's tough. They're not going to give up. But we have the majority, and we have reality on our side. Join our mobilization. Register for the upcoming Schiller Institute online conference. The registration link is at the bottom of the description page. Get your friends to join. A new paradigm is beckoning those who can think and those who have courage. Join us to bring about this new paradigm. Thanks for joining me today. I will take your questions tomorrow as it's Friday. Send your questions to me at harleysch@gmail.com. Register to be a member of the LaRouche organization and to be on my blog page. Thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow.